God, I wanted to watch the Corridor Crew video on Avatar, bro. Dude, Avatar. This one is.
So you know that shot with the strap around the hand? You know, that controversial shot that we just can't seem to get over? Today we're getting to the bottom of it, and we're going straight to the source.
Eric Sandin's here from VFX, who was the visual effects supervisor on Avatar: The Way of Water, and you brought with you some exclusive breakdown of the actual shot.
Thanks to Native for sponsoring this video.
Hey everyone, Jordan here, and I am super excited because today we have a very special...
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Visual Effects Artists React. We are here with Eric Sandin. Eric is working at Weta these days and was the visual effects supervisor on Avatar 2, The Way of Water. Eric, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, no worries. It's fun coming over and sitting with you guys.
What kind of films have you worked on?
Mostly little ones. Lord of the Rings, the original Avatar, King Kong, Hobbit movies.
He's worked on every Lord of the Rings film, every Hobbit film, every Avatar film, and sprinkling a half dozen other films that are all big hitters too.
You know what this guy reminds me of? This guy reminds me of that TikTok guy who's always like, holy Willikers, Batman, I'm trying out this new TikTok recipe that I just saw. That's who he reminds me of. You know what I'm talking about? That guy who always does like the recreations of like pop and TikTok recipes. Come on, man. He's like popping on TikTok. Fuck, he's like the dorky dude who like, what the fuck is this VFX shit? Damascus just got hit by Israeli missiles and 5 died. Bro, it's Saturday, okay? Can I take a fucking day off of news? Like, please? Is that all right, man? Better not be making fun of Ren. I'm not. I know who you're talking about and it's spot on. Someone link me the TikTok of that guy. Fuck. No, I'm sure he's a super nice guy.
So when a film like Avatar 2 comes out, where there is industry-shifting technology being used, you know, that stuff doesn't happen very often. And it's just an absolute pleasure to be able to talk to one of the visual effects supervisors from the movie, to learn more about the technology, for you to share all that with us.
Today, he's gonna answer some questions that the internet has spent the entire last year wondering about, and I think we are finally gonna put a nail in the coffin for the shot that we've all been discussing.
The news don't take time off. Yeah, bro, if I was gonna cover Israeli war crimes as it happened, I would have to literally just do that. I would have to quit everything else and only talk about that. It's like, you know, Israeli war crimes, American war crimes, gun violence in the United States of America, mass shootings. These are things that happen every fucking day, okay? Police brutality every fucking day.
Perhaps incorrectly for a while now.
There's a shot in the trailer where Jake is wrapping a strap around his hand, and we're all just like, whoa, because the water fidelity in that shot was just unlike anything we'd ever seen.
This is the wettest water I've ever seen.
Everything you're seeing was generated by a computer. I doubled down like 3 times. I'm like, no, this shot is 100% CG because I have like a biblical faith in the abilities of VFX. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that's not only possible, it's easy for them. And I said that just like out of blind faith. But then it started coming out like, oh wait, no, it's actually a little bit more complicated than that.
No, not this guy. No, not this old-timey recipe guy. No, the guy who made like Oreo tacos and shit. Fuck. All right, now I'm gonna have to find it, dude. I'm so disappointed in motherfuckers whenever they send me shit like this where it's just like, no, not that guy. It's not. Fuck. Yes, Corey B is the guy. Holy shit. Yes, this fucking guy, okay?
What in the take me to the hospital taco was that? Whoa. Oh, let's make it. Ow, son of a bitch. Throw on some oil so the chocolate don't spoil, okay? Now just radiate it till you don't hate it. 30 seconds at a time. There we go. I put my hand up on your hip. When I dip, you dip, we dip. Let's go. Oh, look at that tortilla. Wow. Here we go. It's got the drip, just like your boyfriend. Oh. Interval? Yeah. Squeeze the cheese. Oh, don't stop till it plops. Make sure you make...
That's what he sounds like.
And that started an entire debate, and so I think it's time.
Who's this for? Bro, this shit has 893,000 likes. When you say this is just on your For You page, you're talking about like tens of millions of motherfuckers For You pages. Are you kidding me? Y'all are dumb as fuck. Anyway, let's continue.
Time for us to settle that debate.
Let's settle this debate.
Perhaps you should start with an ilu.
To settle the debate, we were on stage and Jim said, I can shoot with an actor for an hour on set, and I get the action I want, and we can get the water, or I can around with you guys for 3 months, trying to get the motion, trying to get the water, trying to get everything right. So he wanted to actually shoot it, which we did in a kiddie pool, a little plastic one.
How deep was this pool? Was it like literally a foot deep?
And we had a little buck for the elu, or the skim wing in this case. But what we did was we shot Kevin Dorman, which is one of the actors that did the most on this entire film. We painted his hand, and we did the strap, and the part we kept was about here down, and the strap around his hand, and a little bit of the water in between his fingers. Everything else is CG.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. So not only are you here to tell us the real story, you brought with you some exclusive
He does sound like that guy. Come on.
breakdown of the actual shot.
Yeah, I haven't watched this yet. So.
We have not watched this yet. No. Oh, there it is. Wow. That's so intense.
It's a lot to take in over 100 frames, isn't it?
That's so much work. It's so intense.
Yeah, so that's how you usually see Kevin, is in blue tights.
So the paint on his arm, one of the arguments I made was that by putting paint on top of skin, you lose that sort of subsurface scattering effect, and paint just doesn't quite look like real skin would. And that was my argument against it being paint on skin.
Unless you paint in the subsurface feel to it. So the thing we did was we rendered it out, and we got it to look the way we wanted it with the CG arms, and we gave it to the head of the makeup, Sarah Rubano. So she actually painted in the subsurface look for the lighting for that shot, so that she got the proper color, the proper reds, all that stuff. So if you come off angle, it's not going to work as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's only for a very specific angle for that to work.
Yeah, but we knew at the end.
The amount of work that is put into this single shot is so fucking psychotic. God, I love movies, man. It's so stupid, but so sick at the same time. It's like an incredibly unnecessary amount of work that they put in. That's crazy.
Angle was.
Good point.
That's so crazy.
Wow, okay, that actually just blew my mind more than anything. It's always a mix. It's like you can have a CG element, but if you have some practical elements, you always want to use as much of that as possible. I guess my point of view was that you guys already have developed some of the most incredible water simulation techniques and tool sets. And of course, you already have digital copies of all the characters, all of the little items and accessories, the strap. Why shoot anything practically at all when you can already achieve that level of fidelity digitally?
Performance.
Okay.
It's just performance, right? Like, because Jim wanted that performance that he could direct Kevin to do, to get the straps tightening around. He wanted that. So that's really what it comes down to, especially with Jim, because he doesn't doubt that we can do whatever we want and whatever he wants us to do. But it's more about his time, right? Like, how much time is it going to take him to direct that action? But yeah, the majority of it's really a combination for both. So everyone was right in a certain way.
Interesting.
Now, it's worth noting that the shot that we're looking at here is different than the shot that was in the teaser.
Yeah, that's the one with the blood. So in the original edit, he actually went back to that hand, and you saw the blood on the hand. And that one actually didn't make the movie.
Interesting.
So it wasn't that the shot got replaced. It was an actual different shot that just didn't make the final cut of the movie.
Yeah, it was just a different shot.
Wow. Because you can actually see, like, he goes up and then dives back into the water and he gets thrown off the skim wing, and then he, like, looks at his hand and he's got some blood there. Well, you can see that blood in the teaser shot.
The shot in the teaser, is that a shot where only the hand is real and everything else is CG? Or is that something we're looking at more of a fully real shot?
They're both done exactly the same. So in this one, the foreground hand, the one that's squeezing, is real. The skim wing is mostly replaced. The water is mostly replaced.
Yeah, because we were looking at the detail of the water on top of the actual saddle itself, the way it was going into that thin film style, glooping onto the actual saddle in a very, very realistic way.
CG.
Same with those bubbles there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we had to replace the skim wing underneath. Because we had to make that an actual skim wing.
Because that was what I was thinking. I was like, there's a freaking creature underneath all of that, and it's too hard to, like, match the...
There's a little bit of both in there, right?
Okay,
like, it's
bro,
all
chill.
mixed. Where you can use the live action, you use it.
I mean, it is
even if you
insanely
end up
impressive, but
projecting it
he's,
back
like, going
onto
crazy.
Geometry. You guys have done the same thing. One other thing we started using on this was live depth compositing with CG and live action together as you watch it. One of the weird things we weren't expecting out of that is we also get per frame geometry.
Oh, wow.
So we have an exact geometry for all the action and for how everything's moving. So we can do projection from the live action plate back onto the geometry.
Okay, I want to ask a lot more about that because that's pretty mind-blowing, but let's finish looking at this first here. Okay, so we're now looking at the saddle there, and of course you guys have a digital
Wait, there's no way this is all just the fucking hand, right? Oh no, they're walking on water.
copy
Okay,
of the
they're gonna talk
saddle.
about
So
water
all
simulation.
of the saddle
now.
was replaced?
Wait, no, the pit under his thumb is from the original also.
Okay.
Well, it's part replaced because the water height is different on the two. So part of it you replace, part of it you don't. And when the water is coming up on it, we have to match our CG water to it. So you project it on, you keep what you can, and you put the water back over the top.
It's interesting. I mean, you get like the hyper detail of like the water splashing on the hand and like on the little like surface texture of that woven pad under his thumb. But then you have everything else. That's so intense.
Because water is a very complex material in how it behaves. You know, big macro scales of this is like oceans, and then you have the tiny thin film stuff. But no solver can do each of those types of interactions all at the same time.
We took all those different states, right? The big waves, the small waves, the crashing on the shore, the interaction with the boats.
Is because there's Reddit drama behind this video? Wait, really? Why? There's Reddit drama behind these?
We taught a big system how to do that. And so it knew all the different ways to solve water and how to put it all together and how it interacts with spray and mist and like the bulk volume of it. We could simulate it all and run it all as one big pass and get all those elements for shots like this. So you do one pass for the whole thing, and it gives you all the different elements, the splashes, the bubbles, all the interaction.
Bubbles are a big thing, like air bubbles under the water. Is that part of the water simulation, or is that a whole different type of simulation tech?
It is part of the water simulation. You see it here, right? The interaction of the creature going into the water, and it's depending on the viscosity of the water. And if the shot starts and his mouth is below the water and it moves down, you're not going to get any bubbles. So you have to make the whole mouth go above the water, come down in, pull the small diffuse bubbles and the big bubbles and get all those interactions. You have to do a lot more thinking about the shots and what happens before the shot.
Motherfuckers talking about cutting edge CGI, and meanwhile the video was running on YouTube at fucking 480p. So I couldn't even see any of the graphics
to get the right bubbles. But the bubbles are all part of the same simulation package.
Yeah, because there's the one dude who's like underwater and he like blows out a bunch of air from his mouth, and it's kind of a close up. It's just this huge like bubble shot. It's in the trailer. I just remember thinking, man, I've never been excited about bubbles since I was like 5, and here I am again.
So you have this crazy water system that can do all these different things. What's an aspect of water that it still can't do?
The thing we had the hardest time with was raindrops on people, because tracking a raindrop, having it hit someone's shoulder and then do a little crown splash and then drip down and interact with clothes, interact with hair and things like that.
And other water droplets.
And other water droplets, so it combines with other water. That's honestly the thing that we struggled with the most. We figured it out in the end, but it was one of those weird things that we weren't really accounting for. But Jim,
bro, just use practical. What the fuck? People are, dude, am I crazy? Am I an old man? Like, I don't understand. It can't be that hard to do like practical effects on rain, right? That blows my mind. What the fuck? No, must spend money. No, ultimately, the irony is that CGI, when it gets to a certain level and is streamlined to a certain degree, is going to no longer require as much money. It's like cheaper than practical once you automate it. It might actually be cheaper than practical right now, as a matter of fact, especially because like when you do CGI or when you have the technology for it, it's just, you can use it forever. You know what I mean? Whereas practical effects, every single time you try to like set up a shot, there's continuity issues. There's a fuckload of water that you're wasting. You know what I mean? So this is these are the practical effects are basically dying because it's going to get to a point with like technology making it so easy to just do it, to recreate it. Practical rain isn't hard, but they're doing in CG characters, which I imagine is insanely hard. It's cheaper because VFX studios are the only part of the industry that aren't unionized. No, there's the other element of it, what I'm explaining to you, is absolutely a factor. It's basically building for the future. FVX. I think he meant VFX, but anyway, it's, dude, there are so many components. Continuity, like I mentioned, daytime, nighttime. Are you doing it in a fucking sound stage? Are you doing it outside in the shot? There is a lot going on. I do camera VFX for a living, LED volumes, projection mapping, etc. It will save productions a ton of money as long as they can understand that they can front load the production costs. Yeah, VFX is infinitely cheaper than doing it, or will become infinitely cheaper than doing it raw. Wow, this guy is so stupid sometimes. Anything to not employ people. Okay.
Had a lot of rain in this movie. It wasn't like the first movie where there were, one scene with rain? He used rain to help tell emotion. So we really wanted to do all these things in.
Yes, the argument for practical effects that I have heard before is that it will hold up better for longer than CGI would. Take, for example, the first T-Rex scene in Jurassic Park. CGI will always keep improving. Therefore, previous CGI effects will look outdated sooner. You are correct on that. Yes. Faking it with practical is always going to look better than ultimately getting to a point with CGI where it's like indistinguishable from the reality, which I feel like we are kind of close to at this point. I'm not even kidding. I do think that we're like almost, I do feel like we're getting close to that fucking like not distinguishable from reality era. And the only, every year it feels like that. I know. But there was, I mean, dude, look at Avatar 2. I don't know. It's just pretty fucking insane, dude. I don't know what it would look like. I do know. Ask Atriok. He's the expert. Chill. Come on, man. Spell is a violation.
Interacting together, and like characters, you need to be able to see the hair interact with the water. You need to see the hands, the teeth, and that's what sells the water.
I feel like an unsung hero in all this is the hair. Like everyone's like, water, and the water's amazing, and it's in the name of the movie, but the hair.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Avatar the way of hair.
Yeah, but the hair is like perfectly photoreal, and like the hair moves in the water, and moves in the air, and it gets wet, and it dries out. Like,
all I'm saying is
crazy things.
All I'm saying is T-Rex in Jurassic Park was all CGI. Yeah, I think that's what they're saying. They're saying that the T-Rex in the Jurassic Park was shitty looking. Like this is kind of shitty. That's the point. That's the argument they're making. They're saying, look at this CGI. If they did this right now, I mean, even if it's practical, it's kind of not great looking, honestly. But it's not all CGI. It's a mix. To be fair, this is not the last version. Bro, that was 1993. Oh my God. Dude, you're fucking missing the point. The argument that people are making is that for CGI, what looks good in 1993 is not going to look good in 2023. That's the point. That you're basically admitting the point that the chatters were making as far as the argument between practical versus CGI, because it doesn't hold as well. It's really good for the time. It's unimaginably good for the time, but it's never the same because effects are always better. Okay? Effects always get better year over year, which my argument is like, there's going to come a point where it's like pretty much photorealistic.
With the hair.
It's very different than the first movie. First movie, we did big cloth strips, and that would account for 20, 30 hairs. And so that cloth strip would move around, but the hairs would all sort of do this.
As if they're just like a texture on a piece of cloth.
And in this film, every individual hair is simulated on its own. On the braids, the peach fuzz on the braids is simulated. So in the wind, they all move around, and you get
that is
much better
insane.
performance. And you,
like, dude, as we are, listen, we're on Twitch. We love video games. We have been at the forefront of like basically CGI and animation, okay? And physics as well. And we have experienced the change through the 90s all the way to now. And the reality is like all the stuff that they're talking about here in this fucking movie are insanely difficult to I mean, they still haven't fully done this. They haven't been able to do this in the gaming space because there are many more variables. But like, you understand this better than anybody else. You understand this better than your fucking boomer dad. Like, this is crazy.
You get things you wouldn't expect, like Loak. He's got that one braid, right, that is always hanging here or hanging here. And Jim always said that's the whole reason in Terminator 2 that Eddie had that hair that always hung down onto his face. And he wanted the same feel.
What?
There it is.
Rebel feel to him.
Okay. Well, that's a cool fun fact. It's very important that you subscribe so you don't miss out when our upcoming Avatar 3 content drops. It's right around the corner, like what, 4 years from now? Subscribe.
Better not be.
Subscribe. I want to talk about the motion capture because that was, I think, one
Performance
of the...
capture.
Sorry.
John Lando will call you and yell at you if you say
Promise?
Yes.
Can you tell us about the whole sort of system you developed for The Way of Water?
Jim's first thing he said was, I want to capture everything underwater. I want to do it in one volume so that the actors can go underwater and onto the surface and out of the water and never miss a beat. So one of the guys at LEI, Ryan Champney, came up with a system where he basically did a volume underwater and a volume above water. The two were in sync. And it's all one capture, which was a trick in itself.
Yeah, I was about to say, because the sort of challenges involved for capturing underwater versus above water are completely different.
Not to mention the whole like visual refraction differences between underwater and above water.
Yep, exactly like this shot here, right? You see the reflection under the surface and it screws up all your cameras. So they covered the surface in ping pong balls.
Oh, wow.
Which essentially got rid of all the reflections under the surface and above the surface, and then you could just tie the two together.
Okay, so let's just clarify that for a quick second for everybody. So motion capture, you're tracking an object.
Capture.
Well, specifically,
I could feel my phone vibrating with John already. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
You know you're in trouble when John calls you. Hi, John.
Eric.
Hi.
I hear these rumors you're on a talk show and people are talking about stuff and calling it motion capture. It's performance capture.
How did he know?
I can't believe that. Motion capture, Eric, is missing one key letter in front of it. E. E-motion capture. We want the E-motion of an actor. That's why we call it performance capture. Come on.
Sorry, John.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, let's get this straight, everybody.
All right, we're dialed in.
I told you he'd know. He always knows.
I'm rewinding it. Going back even for just the old days of tracking a ping pong ball in a space, right? So you're using optical cameras to do something like that. Now, if you put up a mirror, well, that confuses the camera. Which thing is the real thing? It's the same reason you can't photo scan things that are reflective.
Can't scan a mirror.
So the surface of the water is a mirror, especially if you're below it. And so if you're trying to do performance capture in a volume and you're using optical tracking, yeah, that's just going to screw it all up.
Yeah, it screws it all up.
So in the first Avatar movie, there was a big water sequence where Jake Sully jumped off of a waterfall and went through the river, and that was all done with a process called dry for wet.
Yep.
Essentially, he was just hung from wires and pretended to be underwater. But that doesn't give you the same performance that you would get if you were actually underwater, because there's resistance to your motion.
Well, first I'll correct you in that Jake was sitting in a office chair with wheels getting pushed around the performance capture stage for the first movie. And going like this.
Glad to know Hollywood is just as pretentious about performance as theater. I mean, dude, what they're doing is like merging science and art. It's beautiful. I think it's cool, and I don't even like nerds. You know what I mean? I constantly shit on motherfuckers for being too nerdy, and even I think this is valid to fucking soy over this a little bit. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, you motherfuckers soy at like the dumbest shit, like a top of the hour ad break that comes at the top of every hour. All right. Anyway, here's the 3-minute ad break now.
So it was a very different experience than this film. Just talking performance capture underwater, you can see it when all the characters are swimming, right? You understand that they're in the water because the way their arms are moving, the way they move around, it feels much more real. Whereas if it was dry for wet, you always get that overacting, right? Like, okay, pretend you're underwater. Ooh. Everyone.
I'm underwater,
overacts.
y'all.
Yes, exactly. You don't want that. Jim would never let that happen. So putting them in the water, they act like they really are.
Yeah, because some of the subtlety that I'm noticing is just like the way everyone's legs from like the knees down are always kind of moving, just kind of trying to tread water a little bit. I don't think that's something that you would think of doing in a dry for wet scenario where like, oh yeah, just the bottoms of my legs are just constantly like
I feel like they did this as a flex. By the way, you guys have literally, the better my top of the hour segues have gotten, the more aggressive you've been with the scoring. Like today, you guys have been rating me consistently at a 7, and I think it's because like there's less normies in here, and normies are way more forgiving with the segues. And also, like you guys, the better it gets, the more you fucking give me a lower score. Like, you know, it's fine. It's okay. You guys are fucking real shitty. It's fine. This is supposed to be the core community.
going. Like you're saying, it's always overly exaggerated.
So I gotta take a moment here to give a big shout out to Weta for actually taking the time to clear clips and share behind the scenes clips with us and breakdowns, to support a little YouTube show like ours, and to take the time to put that out there. Like it means a lot to us, and it's for all of you to watch. So one big collective thank you to Weta for that.
What a big deal.
All right, Ren, cut it out.
We cannot let you bring your war here.
So you mentioned that there's a new facial performance capture system for Avatar 2, and instead of one camera, there's two cameras now, but how does the actual animation of these faces from that data, how has that changed?
So in our old system, right, it was called a fax-based system, and we started that back on Gollum. And it was hundreds and hundreds of models. We would take those models and we would blend shape and interpolate in between them, right? But sometimes in between two shapes, you got something weird. And then you had to go in and model those, fix those shapes and sort of try to figure out what was supposed to be in between. With our new system, it's using deep learning. It's sort of a neural net of different poses to know how the different shapes work together. So it figures out the muscle system and how that should react with the facial itself. So you get a much better interpolation of what the face should be doing, and it doesn't use any models anymore.
So it's basically going like, okay, you want this shape? Well, here's the muscles that would fire to give you that shape.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then from there, it's literally just simulating the motion.
So they're just recreating human anatomy. You can basically download this for free online. I mean, oh, Jesus Christ, dude. It's fucking scary, but also sick.
Motion of those muscles underneath the skin, and then the skin is just like a shrink-wrapped thing on top of it.
Exactly.
These shots are insane to me. I mean, all of it's insane, but like the ones where you have live action people in the scene.
Okay, two things that were a flex in this movie that a lot of people just kind of glanced over. One, the entire movie is in water. Okay, very difficult to do for CGI, which they covered. Two, a lot of people were like, oh, why the fuck was this character involved to begin with? Myself included. I think Spider was a shitty character. Spider was a shitty character, but was, in my opinion, and some people also brought this up in the chat, was just there to show you, again, as a flex, as a fucking flex, that they, you know, you can have a human actor and a motherfucking CGI blend so seamlessly like a goddamn tech demo. Exactly. 100%, dude. Tech flex, is this a movie or a tech demo?
I mean, is The Rock real? Is The Rock fake? Like, you know, how much of this, like, how did you do this?
Well, actually, every one of these shots is a little bit different. So a lot of these shots, it's Jack on a green screen. This one is actually a digi-double.
I was about to say, for a lot of these shots, Jack could very easily just be placed in it digitally, and that helps seamlessly bring stuff together, assuming the camera's not too close, right?
The problem with this one is Jim actually wanted to shoot it, but the camera would have been 10 feet outside the roof of this studio we were shooting in. So we couldn't actually get the camera where it needed to be to get the shot. This one, we actually have Spider on a fake rock, pulling a 7-foot tall guy in a blue suit. He wasn't big enough, he was really skinny. So we didn't have enough volume. So what we ended up keeping was the rock and the water at the base of his feet, and some of the stuff dripping off him is real, but he's actually replaced from the waist down with CG.
Wait.
Wow.
Yeah. We kept his upper half and we replaced his lower half with CG so that we could get the water interacting with his feet properly. So
insane.
It's like a weird combination for all of them, right? Like you use what you need to use and you replace what you need to replace.
Whoa. You can kind of tell, dude. Not really. I'm capping, but
Replace what
I do feel like in that shot it seems kind of fake.
you need to replace. Jack's arm is replaced here too so that we could get a better grip.
So you have to have flawless 3D models and rendering going on to pull this off.
Yes. We had to have a perfect version of Jack as a CG spider.
Can you describe what depth compositing is?
So Jim uses simulcam, and simulcam is like live action and CG characters in the same shot. And as he moves the camera around, he can see the CG characters in the live action camera.
That was like kind of the big pioneered sort of thing from the first Avatar.
Yeah.
Which was how he was able to like film live action style on a digital set. Like,
Yeah.
Now we just call it virtual production.
But the downfall in the first film was if the two overlapped each other, the CG one was always going to be just over the top. You could never really put them in there properly. So in this one, we used two Basler cameras, which are just two little cameras on the side of our camera rig, and we generate depth using deep learning, and it can distinguish what is layered on top of one another, so that if Spider goes from behind Korch to in front of Korch, he shows up correctly. And even in the water, we could use our depth compositing to see what characters are layered in the water.
Dude, chat, come on. You have to admit this is fucking bananas, dude. I mean, come on, dude.
Water in the right depth. So in this one, you basically got where the splash was, right? And where the wave is coming in. So you could...
Bro, it's boring as fuck, Lamau. I'm sorry. Shut up, bitch. You're boring as fuck.
Plug that into Loki, into the simulation, and you could tell Loki this is where the wave's coming in, this is the timing of the wave, and get proper simulation to match the live action one.
Yeah, I was about to say, that would give you like volume and velocity data.
Yeah.
Cool.
Handy little things to have.
Yeah! How did you guys handle eye lines and stuff? Because like, for a movie like this, you got all these digital people that Jack's having to like look at, and they're all like twice as tall as him.
Yep.
Did you have the tennis ball?
You know when you watch a NFL game, and you see that camera whizzing around above the stadium, the cable cam?
Yeah, super cool.
We set up a cable cam. It basically ran from each corner of the set, and it dropped down, and it had a little monitor on it with like Slang's face, and we could plug in the performance capture of Slang into the cable cam.
Which you could then position accurately in 3D space of the actual set.
Yeah, it just did it for us. Because he acted in that same set, right?
Okay,
so
yeah.
So it just floated above his head as it moved
just
around?
moved around. So when Jack was talking to Slang, he would talk to the monitor and he would have a proper eye line, proper timing. He could interact with it. If we needed him to shake hands with someone or touch someone, right? We could have Kevin Dorman again in a blue suit, and he could just sort of walk around and look up, see where the cable cam was, and just sort of walk under it and be at the right time. It would give him perfect timing.
Did anyone ever get bonked in the head by the monitor?
No, that was one of the biggest worries, to be honest.
Because that's a big danger with cable cams in general.
Yeah, the first few times it got set off, everyone sort of stayed really clear of it. But it was very stable, and it worked a treat.
If you're enjoying this video but you haven't got enough of it, well, guess what? There's an extended version of this episode right now on quarterdigital.com. We go into a lot more detail.
How about unofficial posts?
7 years. Because if you really go back, right, like we finished the first Avatar, Jim took some time off figuring out what the next ones were going to be, and then we got back into working with him on the LEI stage and really starting to get into it. And then he started giving us test shots to start working with. So we've sort of been on and off on this for the past 7 or so years.
If you guys don't win the Oscar for Best VFX, there's something wrong in the world.
You never know. There's some great movies out there this year, so you just never know what happens. And I think the visual effects in this movie add to the movie, which is really what you want from it, right? Like, it's not a movie about visual effects like a lot of movies are. It's just a movie, and it happens to have a lot of visual effects. They help add to the movie. They just aren't there to just make explosions or make weird magic things happen or whatever.
So what's next for you guys, right? Like, you have this crazy physics system here, and you have all these crazy pieces of technology that can drive performance. What's next? What's the next egg to crack?
That's always sort of an unknown, right? Like, what's going to be the next challenge? I think we've got water sort of solved, but there's new elements to the next film, which I can't unfortunately give away too much. But there's new elements that we're going to have to figure out.
Yo, people just saying like it's all visual effects. There's fuck all else. You're so silly. Well, we solved water. That's a huge deal, man. Hair, water, how these things interact with one another. You guys are fucking video game playing Andes. Like, how the fuck do you not know that? I guess like fire and lava is gonna be pretty hard to solve too, right? The thing is, like, the thing that's weird to me is that, like, this is not a website where I thought people would be this aggro about VFX. Like, this annoying about VFX. Like, oh, whatever. Like, I love practical effects as well. I've talked about it earlier in the fucking stream even. Like, when we were talking about Steven Seagal. But every single thing that they're doing here also benefits gaming. Like, every single thing. So that's why it's like strange that people are just like, pah, just VFX, dog. Who gives a fuck? It's like, what do you mean, dude? This will legitimately improve video games. It improves video game physics. It improves video game graphics. It improves movies. But what do I expect from motherfuckers who watched all of the Steven Seagal shit and then turned around and were like, yeah, that's the good stuff. Give me the good stuff. Fuck off with this nerdy nonsense. You know what I mean?